Microsoft has been getting grilled by regulatory agencies over the past year after the company behind the Xbox announced their desire to acquire Activision Blizzard, i.e. one of the biggest third-party publishers in the video game industry, for a gigantic sum of nearly $70 billion last year. Microsoft has faced sharp criticism from regulatory bodies, particularly from the more stingy European market. They have also been receiving criticism from competitors, most notably Sony, who is the maker of the PlayStation, as they believe that the Activision Blizzard acquisition would be anti-competitive, a belief that is honestly correct. After all, Microsoft has been purchasing third-party developers and publishers at a fast rate over the past few years, as if they just received a stimulus check, and if that said stimulus check was in the tens of billions of dollars range. Because as of late, when it comes to spending ludicrous amounts of money, Microsoft has a macro hard-on, and ultimately the company is doing this in order to essentially use its wealth of excess cash to ensure that popular games are exclusive to its platforms. See Starfield becoming an Xbox exclusive after Microsoft bought out ZeniMax and Bethesda a couple years back, which is definitely anti-competitive. After all, to use Starfield as an example, Microsoft could have started a studio and created a dev team to create their own Starfield-style spacefaring RPG competitor. They could have made their own game, but instead, with the Bethesda purchase, Microsoft is depriving its competitors of products like Starfield. The company is just buying out studios in order to bolster its first-party exclusives instead of actually entering the realm of competition. And now the company wants to do the same with Activision Blizzard, but on a grander scale. After all, Activision Blizzard boasts many popular titles like StarCraft, Diablo, and particularly Call of Duty. Hell, especially Call of Duty, seeing as it's such a big-name brand that even old politicians are aware of it. It's a game that the type of people that make up these regulatory bodies know about, which is honestly why Microsoft's potential ownership over the Call of Duty brand is one of the biggest points of contention in this case. In fact, concerns over Call of Duty exclusivity has been mentioned a lot on the public record, one of the most notable of these criticisms being from Sony. If anything, Sony has understandably been taking a particularly hard stance against Microsoft here, even going so far as to throw Electronic Arts' Battlefield franchise under the bus late last year, which was honestly kind of funny. Per a statement Sony made to the UK's Competition and Markets Authority back in November 2022, Electronic Arts, one of the largest third-party developers after Activision, has tried for many years to produce a rival to Call of Duty with its Battlefield series. The statement then continued, despite the similarities between Call of Duty and Battlefield, and despite EA's track record in developing other successful AAA franchises such as FIFA, Mass Effect, Need for Speed, and Star Wars Battlefront, the Battlefield franchise cannot keep up. End quote. As stated before, Call of Duty is receiving a lot of attention here. In regards to arguments against the acquisition, the Call of Duty nommer has been everywhere. It has basically been the video game equivalent of herpes, hashtag Call of Duty cold sores. It has been a sticking point, so much so that Microsoft has understandably pledged to make sure that the franchise remains on PlayStation and goes back to Nintendo for roughly 10 years, as well as to have console parity if the merger goes through, something that Microsoft is willing to put into writing and put it into a contract, a move that is likely meant to appease regulators. Admittedly, Microsoft claims that having Call of Duty on PlayStation and Nintendo is a good business decision because they don't want to exclude a large base of customers from potentially buying their product. According to a Twitter thread by Microsoft Communications lead Frank X. Shaw, we've been clear. We've offered Sony a 10-year deal to give them parity on timing, content, features, quality, playability, and any other aspect of the game. We've also said that we're happy to make this enforceable through a contract, regulatory agreements, or other means. Sony is the console market leader, and it would defy business logic for us to exclude PlayStation gamers from the Call of Duty ecosystem. End quote. However, this line of reasoning doesn't make much sense and is downright contradictory when factoring in all the other titles that Microsoft is acquiring. As a really great Forbes article by Paul Tassi pointed out, if it was really about the business logic of not excluding the customers, then how come so many of Microsoft's past acquisitions feature games that have not or will not be on a PlayStation console? Why are these games releasing cross-platform only in a case-by-case basis rather than being uniformly multi-platform? Because obviously, if Microsoft really cared about not excluding potential customers, then why are they actually excluding customers with the upcoming Starfield and Redfall? Sure, Microsoft argues that these games won't be as successful as a Call of Duty title, but if Microsoft is really arguing about not excluding customers, then that argument makes no sense with their actions. And that's even before we talk about The Elder Scrolls 6, a very noteworthy upcoming game by Bethesda from a hugely successful franchise, yet is still implied to be an Xbox exclusive, which ultimately does not gel with Microsoft's overall arguments here. Because where Microsoft can argue that games like Redfall and Starfield won't be as successful because they are new IPs, so of course we don't know about that for sure, we shall see how they do, the same really cannot be said for a potential blockbuster that is the sequel to fucking Skyrim, i.e. one of the most successful RPGs ever made, meaning that Microsoft's case-by-case basis approach is really selective, and that's their argument about not excluding customers from Call of Duty does not pass muster when they are actively excluding customers from other games. There's just a dissonance with their argument here, and ultimately that reasoning and Microsoft's wishy-washy release plans for its titles highlight a game company that will make its games exclusive if they think they can get away with it, meaning that they will try to appease customers, rivals, and regulators by throwing them a few bones, all while using its acquisition to get a leg up on the competition. And while sure, Microsoft will claim that it's not acting in an anti-competitive manner, the way in which it has quite quickly accrued a vast library of games through monetary acquisition rather than creating them from scratch themselves shows what this deal actually means for the industry, that Microsoft stands to gain a whole lot, all while its rival at PlayStation stands to lose, even if PlayStation is going to receive Call of Duty titles for the next 10 years. And with that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like rating, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and leave me a comment telling me what you think of Microsoft's Activision Blizzard acquisition and how it could potentially own Call of Duty. Also, please consider checking out my Patreon page. $1 a month gets you onto this credit sequence, and $5 a month allows you to start making quick review and impressions requests. The link to my Patreon is in the description. And speaking of Patreon, I just want to thank my patrons, particularly my high tier ones in Samantha Devlin, Mom, and Morgan. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. Love y'all.